Your
Yeah.
life, every time you add a kid, it gets better. It just takes a little dip before you get to the up.
Welcome to the Birth Lounge Podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts, support your mental health, and learn the tips and tricks that thousands of parents have used to craft their ideal birth. We will answer all of your questions, the scary ones and the weird ones, to help calm your fears and feel confident going into your birth. I'm going to help you redefine what birth and motherhood looks like and how to embrace your journey. I've intentionally crafted a list of experts to help you navigate pregnancy, explore your birth options, and plan for postpartum so that it can be a time of soaking in your tiny human. We're going to go there on all the hard topics so that you can dive deep into finding your confidence and freeing yourself from fears around birth. With over 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I created this podcast as a way to share the resources parents need to make educated and informed decisions about their care in pregnancy and childbirth. This is a birth community driven by evidence-based information and research in hopes to help you explore your options, understand your rights, and know what choices you have along the way when it comes to birth and beyond. I'm your host, HeHe. Now let's get to the good stuff. Hello, have you heard about my completely free class that teaches you 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor by up to 50%? And remember, I mentioned it was completely free. This class is going to teach you how to advocate for your preferences in the birth room so that you can have a birth that's filled with joy and not birth trauma. Advocating for yourself starts with being empowered with the right information so that you can ask the right questions and confidently make decisions during labor based on what feels good to you and your baby. But here's the thing. The U.S. has one of the highest C-section rates in the world, and it is ever climbing year after year. And it's not because the system is broken, albeit it is, but it's really because women don't have the tools to navigate that broken system. We may not be able to change the system before you have your baby, but what we can do is change how you operate within that system. Change the conversations that you're having with your providers. Change the places that you are getting your information to help you have informed conversation with your doctor before you have your baby. I want to teach you how to do that. We know the reasons that our C-section rates are climbing. We know the reasons that inductions happen so often, and we know the reasons that babies end up in the NICU. I want to help you avoid all of that so that you can have a birth that you love. You can find my free class at thebirthlounge.com/C-section so that you can learn 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor. Again, that is thebirthlounge.com/C-section. See you there. Bye. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. You guys, I'm so excited for today's episode because it is a glimpse into a slice of life that I don't ever get. So I'm a big sister. I have a little sister, and I am a big sister in every sense of the word. I like to be in charge. I like to lead. I like to know the answers when people ask me, especially my little sister. I love to be the person that my little sister comes to for advice and to tell things to and to ask my opinion on. But as I've gotten older, I've realized just how nice it would be to have a big sister. Well, like you, I'm a big podcast listener, and I have fallen in love with Jessie and Amanda from Pregnant Bitchez. I find myself looking forward to their podcast episodes. I find them so refreshing because they are so real. When you think about authenticity and you think about just keeping it A1 steak sauce real, they are the gals to do it. So naturally, after hearing them in my earbuds for months on end, I reached out to them and asked if they would join me on my show. I wanted to have them on to share with you the same big sister advice that I have gotten from them by listening to their show. Now, by listening to their show, I knew a little bit of their birth stories, but in today's episode, you're going to hear about Jessie's birth where she didn't tear at all, and Amanda's birth where she actually had a NICU stay. We're going to dive into what it's like to be pregnant, how you can have conversations with your partner, and what that transition looks like if you've never been there, kind of like me. At the end of it, I get a little choked up because I start talking about my fear that I've been talking to you guys a lot about having kids and losing myself and losing the relationship that I have with my husband. Not that I think that we'll lose it completely, but just I'm aware that it's going to change, and I love the life that we have built so much right now. We have an almost 11-year-old relationship, and it just is easy, and I'm scared to disrupt that. Jessie and Amanda, of course, as always, know exactly what to say to make me feel better. So this isn't some fancy episode. This one is not going to be information dense or data heavy. It's just a couple of gals sitting around chatting about girly things. Without further ado, Jessie and Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello, we're so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you guys. I feel like, obviously, I said this, but I'm sitting around with kind of my big sisters. I don't actually have big sisters. I am the big sister in my family. I'm the oldest, and I just have listened to you guys for so long now that when I put you in my earbuds and your new episode comes out, I'm like, yes, I get to hang out with my sisters.
Aw.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
like-
I'm actually a big sister myself too. I think Jessie's also a big sister.
Yeah, I'm a big sister, but I don't have a little sister. I only have a little brother. Both of us have little brothers. So I like this.
Yeah.
And thanks for having us on today. We're excited to chat with you, and we love the vibe too. I feel like we're a similar vibes on our podcast, and we like to share everything and talk and like chilling. So we're excited for the convo today.
Cool. Okay. I just imagine us like pouring ourselves wine. Okay. Now
I know.
1:30
we
p.m.
should have recorded this late at night so we could have actually sat around with our wines. Okay. I want to start out, I think, by hearing your birth story. So I know a lot about your birth stories because I listen to your podcast, but for people who this their first time meeting you, tell us, I'd love for you guys to tell us what your births were like, and feel free to tell your birth stories if you want, but also how interacting with the medical system and the medical staff and all of that. Just as a reminder, you're obviously in Canada, so it's a little different, but I still want to know what it was like being in labor and interacting with the hospital system.
You want to
Jessie,
go?
I'm going to let you take this away first.
Okay,
because
I'm first.
we have two different stories.
I have two very different stories. I went through a hospital birth on the first one because I think I was just like petrified of what it was going to be like. And then I did a natural birth at a birth center the second time. So like no medical intervention whatsoever. And could not have been more different experiences. Like the hospital birth, they make you feel like a patient. You get the hospital gown and you're like instantly hooked up to machines and everything, and they're rolling you in this way, and it feels very medical, and you don't feel prioritized at all, and you're just one of 100 girls in there trying to give birth, fighting for a room. We have something called triage. So like when you start to get into labor, you go into triage, and you're like literally standing in a hallway with you're disgusting, you're sweating, you're contracting amongst all these other people. You don't have your room yet. It's not empowering at all. And then you compare that to a natural birth experience where there's three women they only have 3 rooms that you only go in just for the birth. You can labor at home. You have your midwife with you the whole time. There's no shift change, anything. They have a bath for you. You can put your own music. It was a lot different. I don't know. Like just at the get-go, that was a night and day. But you have to be willing to have a birth without an epidural. That's
We can
Yeah.
dive into that. Don't worry, I'll circle back to that.
So I had two similar but different experiences. I have high blood pressure during pregnancy. So it was like an emergency induction around 35 weeks. I called my doctor. I was like, I'm going to pass out. Something's wrong. He basically was like, you're coming in and you are getting hooked up. And since I had high blood pressure, you have to stay at the hospital. So I had to do the balloon, and I felt a little bit better knowing that they don't send me home, which normally if you are getting an induction with the balloon and you do not have any high risk, you are going home with that balloon, which I would not suggest to anyone. It was the most excruciating pain I probably have ever felt. And I got an epidural at 1 centimeter. That's how excruciating it was. It was my first birth, 35 weeks, obviously baby, obviously not ready to come out. So once he was out, I maybe had him for 20 seconds and he was in the incubator up into the NICU. We were there for 5 days, thankfully, and then we got to go home. But before that, actually, I wanted to talk about, was so nervous about labor and delivery that I was the person to go, I'm getting a C-section without knowing anything about anything. I just knew that you went in for your C-section, you had your time, you had your day, they freeze you, they cut you open, they stitch you up, and you go home, and everything was medicated. But Jessie went first. Our kids are 3 weeks apart, and it was COVID, and her husband actually went live, not when she was pushing the baby, but the entire experience. He made it so welcoming. So I was actually, once I got to the hospital, they did the balloon. I was like, okay, my husband's going to turn on music and we're going to do this. And it was fine because I actually love labor and delivery. Even after my kid went into the NICU, I had the stupid balloon in me. And then my second time, I had an induction day as well because I have high blood pressure. I have to be monitored. They have to make sure everything's fine. My due date was January 19. They called me on December 31st and they were like, okay, we can bring you in. My husband was like, absolutely not. You are going to hold that baby in for one more day because we are going to have a January baby, not a December 31st baby. I said, okay. It was still 37 weeks and 4 days. Like the baby did not need to come out. I could hold it in for one more day to get induced. And I showed up to the hospital for my induction January 1st. And I was actually 6 centimeters dilated, which is absolutely wild to me because the first time around I had an epidural at 1 centimeter and I thought the world was absolutely ending for me. This is the worst pain ever. 6 centimeters second time around, I was like, I don't even feel anything. So in my head, I was like, okay, maybe second kid. They put that epidural in. And my one concern with that the second time around is that obviously you don't get to pick your anesthesiologist. I'm assuming that's not just in Toronto, maybe now, I don't know, but I don't think he did it properly. I looked at my husband and I'm a fainter and I said, I'm going down. So as soon as that epidural went in me, I passed out. I woke up, all was well. And then my second was born maybe 20 minutes after that. And I want to do it again. Those are my 2 birth stories.
So actually, like 4 very different stories.
Very.
And I think that's a really good reminder for all of us is even though you've done this before, it's gonna be different. But you can say that about your kids too. Like your kids are 2 very different humans, and some approaches will work on both, but a lot of times they need different approaches. They're different people. They come from different births. Amanda, I remember learning about your baby's NICU stay, although I missed the part where he was 35 weeks in one of your recent episodes, and I think you do a really great job of just sharing what it's like to be in the NICU as a mom.
Yeah, especially I didn't know any different. So that was a whole thing also where my friends would talk about, obviously the baby is on you and then they bring you to the recovery room. I didn't know any better. This was my first experience. So as soon as I was also in complete shock where thinking about it now, I was like, as soon as they took my kid into the incubator and left, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm starving. Not understanding that the child I just birthed needs help. I'm like, I'm absolutely famished. You have to feed me right now. And now thinking about it, I'm like, I'm in insane. Like, I didn't care to go up and see the baby right away. I was so like, what is happening? It was so fast. And I think the biggest thing now was they explained everything to my husband, which makes sense because you just like birthed this baby. I pushed for an hour. It was a really long, because the balloon, the whole, like, it was a really long experience. I wish someone just looked at me and was like, your baby is dealing with this, and we are taking him to the NICU, and everything will be okay. But I had no idea what was going on. It was like, they took him, then they brought him back in an incubator. They were like, say hi to your baby. And then he was gone. And then you don't get to go up for a couple hours.
I feel like this is the system though in Canada where they really treat pregnant women very high up. But the second you have the baby, it's okay, thanks for bringing us the baby. The baby's the priority, and you could just like, you're fine. Like they don't, they care for you, but it's not the same level of care that, yes, they should have done those things. If you go through like the hospital medical route, like a midwife, they have 2 midwives when you give a birth in Canada, because one midwife is for the mom and one is for the baby. So one,
I love that.
Each human being has a dedicated doctor, whatever a midwife is, I think a doctor, maybe less a doctor, but they treat you both equally versus in the hospital system. Yes, they will sew you up. They will physically treat you and stuff, but they're not checking on you. When you go up to that room and the nurse is coming, yes, they come and check you, but they're really there checking. Baby feels like the priority. You feel completely deprioritized.
So yeah, that's exactly how I felt. We went up. We had a room, but we didn't stay because what was the point of staying? Like, the baby was there, and then they offered us a room in the hospital with one little single bed. You just gave birth. I don't even think I told this like full story on our podcast.
I haven't heard all of this.
My husband was like, so you're going to stay and I'll see you later. I was like, are you okay? I was so mad at him. I'm like, I just birthed the baby. I'm not staying in this little cubicle cell by myself.
Leave me.
Like, are you?
And there's shared rooms too.
Like, no, it was like, no, it wasn't a shared room. It's like in the hospital, if you have a NICU baby.
Oh, they give you a different room.
Just like literally the first day, they give you this room that's like a little single, honestly, it looks like a prison cell. That's the only way to explain it.
That is what I'm picturing, actually.
It looked like an absolute prison cell with a little toilet and a single bed and a little chair. And they wanted my husband and I to sleep there. Granted, we lived 20 minutes away from the hospital. Imagine we didn't live 20 minutes away from the hospital. Then eventually when you go into the NICU, they have this little couch that mom can sleep on if she chooses to. I definitely did not choose to sleep there because we lived 20 minutes away. So I'm like, I was there from morning till night, and then I had to go home and recover. And at that point, there was no recovery with my first kid. I talk about that all the time. Like, this sits bath, anything that you, like, there was no recovery. My legs were swollen. My vagina was absolutely in shambles. First kid, stitches. I had no idea. That's also why we started this podcast. No one told me that this was going to be what happens to your body after you give birth. And then you're in complete shock. Like, you just gave birth, but you're going home and your baby's not coming with you.
That's really fucked up when you think about it.
So yeah, we were there for 5 days. So we were there all day. I went home to sleep. And then basically I started taking care of myself once I finally was able to bring the baby home, and we got the little groove. And then that's when I started to take care of myself with the first, but definitely learned a lot. Honestly, surprised that 6 months later, my husband was like, let's do this again.
You tend to forget, right? Like, even when it turns to the shittiest moment, it's like somehow, it's almost like evolution, or like our bodies are programmed to forget what we went through so that we continue to procreate. Or it makes the newborn sweet moments like super extra sweet in retrospective memory, where you're like, I want that again, forgetting that like we didn't sleep for months.
I also think your physiological clock goes. I had my second, and within 3 weeks, I was like, I need another. I physically was like, I want to be pregnant again. I want to do this again. It wasn't. And I was like bleeding and gross and not sleeping and everything. And I was like, I need to have another baby. It's weird. It's very strange. I'm like, aren't we done?
Are we done, body?
In the middle of this.
Oh my. Okay, Amanda, thanks for sharing that on this podcast. And we learned a lot about your NICU stay on your podcast. And Jessie, one of the things that we learned about your birth is that you didn't tear. And so I want to know, and I know our listeners do too, is what were the things that you did to help yourself not tear, but also help us understand what the pushing looked like in your two different environments that you chose in?
I think it's a good question. What I learned was I tore the first one and I didn't tear the second one. So the first one I had an epidural and I didn't get pardon?
And an OBGYN, a doctor versus
yeah. So a doctor delivered my first one. It's so crazy. My doctor, so in Canada, doctors are on shifts. So your doctor could not deliver your baby. By the randomest of days, my doctor was at the hospital and her shift ended at 5 and she left. And I had been pushing for an hour and a half and she left. And a different doctor came and delivered my baby, which is insane to me that she didn't just stay. But so with the first one, I had an epidural. I was on my back. I was pushing for an hour and 45 minutes, which is like you aren't supposed to be pushing for that long when you like actually do the research and learn about it. And I had a pretty decent tear. I had to have stitches. I never got an episiotomy, thank God, because I feel like those are really bad recovery. But you really don't know what's going on down there. I would ask questions of, am I pooing? Am I peeing? What's going on? You can feel pressure, but you can't feel any. If the epidural is fully working, which it was, like you don't feel any pain and you don't really feel anything what's going on. And then they're like teaching you to like it's like push harder and you're like, I have no fucking energy left. It's like exhausting. And so they're like push from your ass and I'm like I can't feel anything. I don't know how you guys are explaining what's going on. So not obviously, I guess I tore, I didn't know, and you just don't feel anything. Then the natural birth, that was crazy. So you feel everything, like everything that's going on. I knew I was pooing. I knew everything. I could feel it all. It was disgusting. I mean, yeah, anyway. So like you have different positions and you actually can go in the different positions. So the second that I started pushing on my back, I was like, this hurts and feels terrible. So then I flipped and I basically pushed on all fours for most of the birth. And only the very last second did the midwife flip me over and she was like, breathe, because I could feel the crowning. She was like, don't push. And she basically massaged the head out for those like couple pushes. And then the baby came out after. You still had that same grunty, like use all your energy to get it out. But anytime it felt uncomfortable, I could stop and I knew. And you're just so in tune with your body that if it hurts, you stop. And I just think it's your body's natural way of not pushing a tear. And then I also think being smart about how you deliver at the end. I do think there's value of pushing on your back, like with your legs out and the doctor can really see the head. But that was like 3 minutes of my pushing, not an hour and 45 minutes of my pushing. So I think it makes a huge difference. And then they've also said one doctor put like warm compresses like on my vagina as I was pushing to stretch the skin. Like when the babies come flying out, that's what causes tearing. You have to think about it if it's like working and like slowly stretching your skin. That's what helps. When it goes like that, they'll say to you, do you want an episiotomy? Because the baby's coming out fast and we want to cut you. That's happened to some of my friends before, where they're like, you're either going to get ripped all the way or we can cut you because this baby's flying out of you right now. I'm like, oh, that's awful.
Wow, and that's really surprising. I wonder if that's a super common and standard practice in Canada because the research says the opposite. The research says that it's actually better to tear than it is to have an episiotomy. Our governing organization of gynecologists, ACOG, similar to I think ARCOG where you guys are, they actually say that there are very few instances that you actually need an episiotomy compared to tearing naturally. So that is wild. There's a lot of similarities you guys are mentioning though. So our doctors are on call as well. One thing you said though, Jessie, that I don't not to say it would never happen here. I'm sure there are people, but it is customary for providers to stay past their shift. So you being in the middle of pushing and her just like, deuce,
Yep.
bye, good luck, see you
Yeah.
later. Hopefully you're still
Yeah.
here on my next shift. That shit's crazy. That is
There's a
insane.
lot of crazy stories.
Like after an hour and a half of pushing, I'm your patient. You have been seeing me for 9 months. You literally already had your hands up me. You're in the birth. You know what's going on, and you're about to bounce. And then the weirdest part was that like my old camp counselor ended up delivering the baby. And I'm like literally sitting there with my legs open. And I was like, nice
Here
to
we
see you.
go.
Nice to see
You're
you.
just a vagina to him.
He's like, hey, Jess. Let me get
I'm
here.
dead. Oh my God.
In hindsight, he was I liked him a lot. Like he had a really great way. Like my doula at the time, she's like, he's really good. Like he was putting warm compresses, making sure he was like doing the same thing of don't push, let me help, whatever. But at that point, I was
You were like, get
hours
this
in, it didn't make a difference. And he actually, the other thing is you want to have an OB that's really diligent because when they stitch you up, they have to stitch you up well because if they don't and the stitches come loose, bacteria gets in and you get an infection and that's really bad. Like one of our friends got a teaching doctor to stitch her up and it was like it came loose and she got infected and they were like, she was like, no, sorry.
That's where advocating
teach
for
on
yourself
somebody
is that
else.
you're allowed to say, do not want a student touching me.
Yes. In America, listeners, you would say you don't want a resident. That's who you would want. You don't want any sort of like a medical students or resident. You want like an actual, not that residents aren't actual doctors for our health professionals. Like you are an actual doctor, but sometimes you just have a preference not to have that. You guys, that's a nightmare. What a nightmare. Not only is it an infection, but it's in your vagina. That's
No.
the worst kind of infection ever.
We've had friends that have had
We've had crazy stories.
Knock on wood, thank God. We've dealt with the pain of healing your stitches, which is burning, awful sensations. And that's in a good healing scenario. We've had people, because think about it, it's like, I don't know, and like peeing and pooing and there's blood. Ugh, the whole thing. It's gross. My friend had her second birth and she was like to her doctor, you are stitching me up. Nobody else.
No, you have to.
But like when you're in labor, when we were in the hospital, for instance, the doctor was like, can this resident check you? I'm like, sure. Can this resident? I'm like, just bring the whole ward in. Just so sick.
But you don't know any of this stuff. You wouldn't think twice going in. If someone told me at 35 weeks that like a resident was going to stitch me up, I would have been like, do whatever you got to do. Take this baby out and stitch me up.
Yeah,
because
you don't know.
I had no idea what the repercussions were going to be after.
No.
Which is the bigger picture that like no one really talks about any of this stuff.
There's really a lack of education. I think we have so many people now on the podcast messaging us being like, thank you for sharing this. And now to us, we've done it twice. We hear so many stories we know, but I always go back to that moment when we were giving birth the first time. Like I didn't even know what the hospital looked like. I had no idea what a room looked like. I had no idea that you go to this room and that room. I don't know what like you just don't know.
I had no idea that if you don't play music, we're sitting there in silence with 2 doctors and 2 nurses staring at me.
And lights in your face. And
if I didn't play music, I looked at them and I remember the doctor, I'll never forget it. She looked at me and she was like, just like no country music, please. And I was like, I'm the one delivering the fucking baby and a mask. Remember when they wanted us to wear masks? And I was like, you get on the table, you deliver the baby with a mask. I'm not delivering with the mask. And they honestly at that point had nothing to say. I looked at my husband. I was like, I'm not delivering with the mask. Like,
I threw out mine in the garbage.
I was like, it's not
happening. Just no.
Turn on music and let's do this. I could put on a mask after, but like in no fucking world am I pushing this baby with a mask on right now.
There were some really crazy things implemented during the pandemic. Just insane where you were like, you're not thinking about that mom at all.
No.
Not her experience, not how this is going to impact her labor, not how this is going to either cause or prevent trauma for her. Just nothing about moms at all.
There were hospitals in Canada that wouldn't let the dad in. They
dropped the woman. No, same here.
So they would drop the woman off at the front hi, bye, have a nice. I know friends that happened to, but it was her third labor, so at least she knew. Imagine that was your first
Yeah,
birth.
I
I
think it's
knew know
unacceptable
someone.
either way. I just think
No, I agree,
that's
but
barbaric.
like I was like the whole time I was like not scared, but like anxious of what's coming next. Like to have no familiar face, support person, anyone, like horrifying. They should that was it should have been illegal. That was
Yeah.
just not cool.
No.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yikes. What a time. I hope we literally never ever have to go back
No.
there. That was that
If
was
it happens again, I'm going to Florida. They had
And we have kids now. We didn't have kids before. I don't think I could do the pandemic with kids. Kudos to everybody who had kids during that because
and
I don't know what I would have done.
no.
I don't know what I would have done.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh God. I feel like I'm having like proverbial PTSD come back to
Literally.
remembering
I
the
know.
pandemic.
Never again.
No,
Literally, I never want to experience that ever again.
no.
Okay. Amanda, you had mentioned that your partner didn't really know what to do. Your husband just had you on the back and was like, "You're doing awesome." Maybe threw in there like, "You look
Right.
beautiful." And you're like, "Bro, I need more." I
Yeah.
want to hear what each of you did to prepare your partner. What kind of conversations were you having or weren't having the first time that you intentionally had the second time? What kind of prep work did you make them do or didn't you make them do and then learn the second time? Um, Tell us the lowdown for that.
My husband is a fainter, so I knew right away that he was not looking down below. So I actually, the first time my doctor took a picture because I would love to watch a full labor.
Yeah.
Like I literally joke with my friends. I'm like, can I please come and deliver the baby for you? Like just the last 2 seconds of it. I love it. I think it's the most fascinating thing
It's
in the
really
entire world. It's
Really
like
is
the
amazing.
coolest thing. I've like literally watched Jesse's a million times. Like it's so fascinating. So I knew he was a fainter. Obviously, there was no pressure in him doing anything else besides when this baby comes, try and take photos because I was like, that was my first time, especially the second time. I was like, you have to take photos. I didn't know if I was going to have another kid. Going into the third, I'm like, I'm getting a doula, a midwife. I don't care. Jesse's coming into the delivery room. I want
we're gonna get our
photos.
podcast film
I
crew in
want
there.
videos. Never gonna do this again. I want to watch what went down. He didn't even cut the umbilical cord the first time. I cut it. He was scared shitless. The second time I looked at him, I'm like, you can do this. Just take the scissors and cut the umbilical cord. And he did it. Mate, honestly, I'm very fortunate. It's the second time around. I was very nervous because my kid is born on January 1st. Obviously, the shift in doctors, you have no idea what you're expecting. You're probably expecting not the highest of the high end. They're probably on vacation, sipping their cocktails. I got very lucky with the 2 female doctors that I had. I did not rip the second time. Do I believe as much all the knowledge that I understand that I think our bodies know what they're doing after you've already given birth the first time? Maybe my kids are 16 months apart. My body was still like, okay, we're in this. They were incredible. They did everything, like the warm cloth. There was at one point she was like, push, stop, like push, stop.
Yeah,
where the first time it was just like exactly what Jessie said, like just push and push. And then at one point she looked at me, she goes, Kay, like he's there. I got to put your hands in. And there we go. And he was out. But we did no prep. This first time, second time, we were already in it. He was like, I just did this. I can do this again. I would never be able to do it if he was not in the room. Exactly what Jessie's saying, just seeing a familiar face, especially when I fainted the second time around. But what I would love like a hype woman. I'd love like someone to, I think I need a hype woman the third time around. Because he's hyping me up like way back here, but I don't want to faint and I'm going to throw up and blah, blah, blah.
No, if you don't, we got a doula because I'm like, otherwise we're like the blind leading the blind. I'm like, I don't know what to expect. He doesn't know what to expect. And we could have done, I guess, the push prep classes and stuff, but I was like, I think I want a doula because I don't even have friends. I don't have cousins. I never saw a birth. I never held a baby. I never changed a diaper. I literally had zero experience, and so did my husband. So we hired this doula, and part of her package include coming to the house before and explaining what the birth would be like and helping me make a birth plan. I remember her she brought diagrams showing us how the vagina is going to open, going from here to here. And Josh was like, I was like, you're making me nervous. Stop. And I'm like 9 months pregnant at this point, and I'm like, there's no turning back. The baby's coming
the
out.
baby's gotta come out.
And he's, oh, ooh, like he's like making sound effects. I'm like, stop it. But thank God for this doula, because she really, that was like our education. Like she was like, hey, this is what's gonna happen. If you get an epidural, like it could slow down the labor. You're gonna be on your back, then you're gonna get Pitocin, then you're gonna get this. You might have to get, like, she was explaining all the different things, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't know anything. So it was very helpful, at least, to have some knowledge of the terminology, what to expect, the different phases of labor. Like you have a longer first phase, and then once you get to the end, like it really picks up. Now, having gone through it naturally, like all of it made sense. But thank God for her. Thank God she was there. Like in hindsight, because it was COVID, she couldn't come with me throughout the whole process. Had she been there, I think she would have advocated, because she got there and she was like, oh my God, you're about to give. I was puking. They were like, you're a first time mom. You're not going to give birth. I like was in it. And she was like, she would have advocated for me earlier to be like, she needs a room now. So I do think having that extra knowledge, like your husband or partner can support you, like as your person, but like they don't know what the fuck is going on. Literally out there getting snacks.
And they're scared. They're more scared than you, because
Totally.
they're scared for your health and safety and the baby's health and safety. They're like, what? Their brains are gonna just explode when they're there. They have no clue what's going on.
No clue. They're like, and then he's like touching me. I'm like, you're not just
don't touch me. Don't touch me right now.
The epidural one, actually the natural birth, Josh had to work really hard, because with the epidural, you're lying there, you're chilling. Okay, they hold your legs to like push, but they're not really doing anything. Like my doula was taking videos and photos and everything. Like you're not in pain. But in the natural birth, like you're like every contraction, like they have to help you through it. Like it's a lot of work. He was like getting soaked in the shower as I was like literally standing there like this for 5 hours. That wasn't easy. And only after did he tell me that he was horrified that I wanted to do it at the birth center. I was like,
oh, he would never do it again.
He was so scared. He was so scared. I was like, you didn't tell me that. He's, I didn't want to ruin your vision. I'm like, oh, good thing it was all good.
I think a lot of men feel just really out of control, right? Like you said, not only are you scared, but they're scared. They're scared for you. They're scared for your baby. They've never been there. So you are the blind leading the blind. And in addition to that, you or us, me, I guess all of us, as a woman, when we are pregnant, we're connected to that baby. We know, you can feel it in your body. I've never been pregnant, but I don't have any kids, but you can feel like, all right, I was meant for this. If you tap into that feminine intuition, you can tell, I can do this if I want, right?
Yes.
Men don't have that. They aren't pregnant. Their bond with this baby isn't where ours is, because they haven't been spending 9 months. They may have a bond with the baby by being able to see your belly grow and interact with your baby through your belly, but their real bond, and when most men realize, oh, shit, this is real, is when the baby's on the outside and you hear a lot of men say, oh shit, that's a real baby. And you go, yeah.
Yep. That's yours.
They really
you made that, buddy.
They actually really recommend that dads do skin to skin right away, so that like they get that instant connection. They feel it, the baby feels them. Like you said, we've physically been connected, like they haven't. So with both our babies, Josh was like, give me a baby. I'm
naked.
Like,
Josh strips.
Oh, yeah. Really? I'm like, oh, that I'm gonna miss if this is our last baby. That's not your last baby.
I'm gonna have one, and then you're gonna be like, I need it.
We'll see. End of 2025 decision. We will see.
And then you just continue to have children years and years and years and years.
No.
It's the only way the podcast will stay alive.
It's the only way. It's the only way.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys, in terms of your partner and stuff and that relationship with your husband, what do people need to know about that postpartum? Your baby's here. Now you've got this tiny little human, or maybe a second one, and now you have two little humans. And that relationship dynamics, not only are there more people in that dynamic now, but you don't have the time. You're sleep deprived. You're both learning new skills. You each have ways that you want to do these new skills. You don't know if you're right or wrong, but this is what comes to you. This is what you read. This is what your intuition is telling you to talk us through postpartum and navigating specifically that relationship with your partner.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think it's very different from 1 to 2. I think after your first, you're both in this twilight zone of what the fuck just happened to us. You're in it together. There's one baby that you're both caring for. There was a lot of teamwork I found. I was pumping, but then my husband would want to be on managing all the frozen milk. And he was like, what task can I do? And I want to do bath time. And it felt more like we could do it together. Yes, our relationship took a little bit of a toll, but a newborn baby doesn't do that much stuff. Yes, you're sleep deprived, but there are a lot of down moments that you can go on a walk. The baby's just sleeping in the bassinet. You're talking as adults. Like, I don't know, you could still be yourselves in that scenario. With the second one, the first 4 months was like hell. Like, actually hated each other, verge of divorce. You take one kid, I take one kid, yelling at each other. You're not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm sleep deprived. You're sleep deprived. The toddler's fucking crazy. The newborns. I could go on. You really feel like you're underwater. And then one day the newborn kind of gets their routine. The toddler kind of accepts that we have a new baby in the family. You stop being hormonal and bleeding and leaking out of every crevice of your body. And you like come up for air and you're like, okay,
we're alive. We made it.
We're back, people. We're back. But it takes a couple months. I'm for some people, maybe it's less. Some people, maybe it's more. For me, it was a couple months. I don't know, Amanda. What do you think?
I completely agree. The first one is, oh my goodness, my husband was the mom. I honestly, thank God now, really thinking back, because we really haven't spoken about this topic in a while, like coming home from, like, he was so involved in the NICU. Like talking to the doctor. He basically was doing rounds with the NICU nurses and doctors. Like, he was so involved. We came home. He was doing all the morning shifts. Like, he really was so involved. But again, with what Jessie was saying was, it's only one baby. It's all you know. And it's your first baby. And it's your first baby. I became pregnant 6 months later. It was like, well, you're pregnant again. Okay, cool. You could do anything. As if pregnancy wasn't a thing. I wasn't pregnant with the baby. I gave birth and my 16-month-old, 17-month-old was sick. So my husband was like, peace, see you later. Left me at the hospital with the baby. Honestly, again, that was okay. It was my second. I did the labor. I was in the recovery room. I was okay. But the shift of, I got to go back to my other kid. I'll see you in a couple hours. And then we came home with 2 kids, and it was 2 babies. And I'll never forget the moment that both my kids were sick, my eldest was sick and my youngest goes in for that first pediatrician visit, which is 2 days after coming home from the hospital. And we're both in the car. I'm crying because the pediatrician was like, the baby's not getting enough milk. He's making me feel bad about it. I'm so hormonal. And he looked at me and goes, I'm never having any more kids again. We are fucking done. Very hard, very hard. One takes one takes the other. You get into bed, you don't even want to talk at the end of the day. You just want to go to sleep. But honestly, now I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we're thriving. We are thriving, where now I'm like begging him for another one because I feel like I don't have babies anymore. But to anyone listening, it is not easy bringing that second child home, especially postpartum, when you need to not only take care of yourself and your newborn, you are taking care of yourself postpartum, your hormones, your feelings, your first child that's at home that needs you and is a shock to them, and now a baby, and your husband. And if you have a dog.
I feel like husbands, they just don't get it. Unfortunately, they also want to be taken care of in it, and they don't realize that you just you went through it. You need to be taken care of. I find you really have to rely on your mom friends. They help you more get through that stage because, like Amanda said, they're just they're overwhelmed and they don't know. It's Adam's reaction. Don't bring any kids home. They just
No more.
they can't do
No
it.
more.
I mean, that makes sense. They're different. They're having a different experience than us. They didn't carry this baby. They didn't just go through the physical piece of labor. Their hormones are not shifting. They're already, this is not political at all. This is just science, but men and women are different. We have different hormone
100%.
cycles. Men have a 30-day cycle. They go through monthly. Ours are daily. Every single day, our hormones are changing. They also get like a reset every 24 hours, where we do not. Ours are monthly. So we have these opposite things where our bodies are just literally different. Your experience going through birth as a mom and a dad are never going to be the same. It wasn't intended to be that way. But we do have to hold space for like, it just might be a shit show. So, Amanda, when you think about having a third, what does that feel like? How do you imagine that will go? It'll just be a constant circus.
Oh, I think it's going to be the
now.
biggest shit show. I think the beginning will be the biggest shit show we've ever experienced, ever. I can totally see my husband looking at me with that face, but I said this from the moment that like, until he looks at me and we're like, we are ready, where we're a team and going into this, like I never want my husband or this to happen to anyone where they're like, you wanted this. Because if I ever heard that term, like that would just, I think my brain would completely explode. This is a team effort. Like, to make a baby, it takes two. I think it's going to be a shit show, but I also believe that if like our timing works out and everything, my kids are a lot older than what we have experienced. Like I had a 17-month-old at home. I had to change 2 dirty diapers. It's basically like I had twins, especially in the beginning. 2 babies in pacifiers, 2 babies sleeping, 2 babies still having 2 naps. It was like nothing. We didn't really get over the hump of let's take a breath. Whereas we've really, I believe, taken a breath now. 1 kid's in a bed, 1 is in a crib, and hopefully with the 3rd kid, I'll have already 2 kids in a bed. I think it's going to be a very different experience, but do I believe it's going to be a complete shit show? 1000%, because you're bringing another child into, you're disrupting the normal. Someone once said that to me, and I think it's the best thing. You are just disrupting the normal of what you're used to.
But that normal can be found again. So if you have just found out you're pregnant and you're actually not excited about it and you're feeling like a lot of anxiety and you're like, but I don't want to disrupt that normal, I'm feeling so scared about it, know that your normal will come back. I promise. You would too. You're going to shift and your family will find a new, stasis, if you will, right? You're going to find your new place of just being and being able to flourish there. Yeah.
It's a better normal. It feels scarier at first, but it's a better version. Your life, every time you add a kid, it gets better. It just takes a little dip before you get to the up. That's exactly all it is.
Oh, okay. So that reminds me of a question that I've been asking myself a lot lately, just because we're thinking about adding to our family. We don't have any children, so it would be adding our first baby to just me and my husband. And then we have a dog, obviously, our first baby. And what about timing? And what about giving up those pieces of yourself, giving up your freedom, and not to say it in a selfish way. I don't want anyone to think I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to give up my freedom because I don't want to not be free anymore. But when I think about how our life would change, it's pretty much nothing would stay the same. We would have to go to bed earlier. We would have to wake up earlier. We would have to eat at different times. To just go run to the grocery store together is not an option anymore. I guess it could be, but it's not. He won't come home and say, hey, we didn't run to the store. I was just coming home to see if you wanted to ride with me. And I literally pick myself up and walk out of the door. Like, that's not a thing anymore. To think about how much our life would have to shift, I find myself currently swinging wildly between I'm ready to have a baby, we should make one like tonight, all the way, literally the next morning, I can wake up and be like, what the hell was I thinking? It's 10:15 and I'm just getting up and Nicholas is making me coffee and I would have to give up all of that. What were you thinking? Did you not put
Oh,
anything? And now being on the other side as your little sister, what is your advice for someone who's like thinking that?
honestly, I love this question. I
I'm
don't
scared
think
for the answer.
I really love this question.
I agree.
Truthfully, I'm going to speak for myself. I just wanted a baby. I actually, with our first, never thought about any of that. I honestly was like, I just want a baby. This is supposed to be the next step. Married, honeymoon, blah, blah, blah. Let's just have a baby. I wanted babies at the age of 20. Like I always wanted babies. So I was like, okay, like I want a baby. I actually never thought about any of that until I was pregnant. So all the feelings that you're feeling, I actually like just didn't even clue in till I was pregnant. Once you have that baby, you're going to obviously be like, I want to go do this. I want to go do that. Why can you do that? Everything is going to fall on the mother. From my experience, I'm going to use Jessie as well. In our experiences, most of the stuff does fall on the mom. So like a sick call or a this call or anything, it's falling on you. So, but you will get it back. Like your kids end up going to daycare followed by like school, like you will get that workout in. You will have time to go get that coffee. You will have time to, you're just going to find, we keep saying it, it's your new normal. And you're never going to go back to how you are currently right now. No. Like you also are going to carry a child, you're going to birth that child, and your hormones are completely going to shift. And it's the best thing I could say is it's your new normal.
Well
Will
said.
you miss that side where, yeah, like sometimes I'm in bed, I'm like, can I just like sleep for another couple hours? No, there's two little humans downstairs, like literally screaming at. But if you want the kids, that's what you're going to get. And I think it's worth it. Sorry, I don't think. I know it is worth it because here I am sitting and saying I want one more. And I will always remember that it's just a phase in your life because you will go to the grocery store with your husband at 10 a.m., maybe not for another 17, 18 years to come, but you will get that back and then you will miss that entire stage. So everything is a phase and everything comes to an end.
Yeah.
Everything has
Oh,
a
I feel
start
like
and
that's exactly what I needed to hear.
I was more like you. Like I really was like unsure about kids. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not having kids for another year. And then it was COVID. And then I was like, man, what the fuck are we gonna do for the next year and a half stuck in our house? May as well have a kid. So it made the decision for me faster than otherwise I would have. And I think the best way I could put it is that when you aren't pregnant and you don't have kids, all you can see is like what you're giving up. That's all you can feel. I'm giving up partying. I'm giving up sleeping in. I'm giving up my personal time. I'm giving up this. I'm giving up that. And you can't understand what you're gaining. Like you just can't understand what it is to be a mom until you are a mom or a dad or a parent. I can explain it to you, but I can't explain it to you. And like when you're in your shoes, you just see, oh, this long list of things I'm giving up. And yeah, okay, being a mom is great and I'm going to have a kid and it's going to be nice, whatever. But until you feel it in your heart and your core, that's like where Amanda's saying you want to have more because it's the most incredible, amazing thing you'll ever do in your life. And if you have any inkling of being a mom or feeling like you want to be a mom, that means you were right. You're meant to be a mom. Like it's never going to feel like a good time because you're always going to have a list of things that you want to
There's
do.
never, sorry, Jess, there will never be a good time. And there's never okay, tomorrow's the day or 2 months from now is the day to start. Maybe once you've had your first, then you can plan the next one. But with the first, like you go for it and it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. But it's hard to see that it's worth it because
Until
you
you're
don't
in
know
it.
what it's not a feeling that you're like, oh, it's similar to this. Maybe if you have a dog, you would feel it a little bit, but it's something that's yours that you made with the person that you love, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys nailed it. This is literally why you feel like my big sisters, right? This is why I feel like I can ask these questions of, but what's it really? And like, I want to ask these things that I'm scared of, right? To become a mom. I do want to be a mom, but it is, you're right.
Scary.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so scary. And
It's
I
scary.
always wanted to be a mom, right? But then it's like the closer we get, I don't know, I'm feeling the pressure of it's just going to be a different life. So it's so great to hear. It's worth it to
And then I do think you get more of your old life earlier than you think.
Yes, I
You
agree.
can strap that baby onto you on week 3 and go for a walk with your husband and do everything that you did when you were pregnant. Like
yeah.
it's not, yes, it is different, but you can bring your old self back. Like I would bring my baby out with us to restaurants.
Yeah.
I take them on vacation. Like you just bring your baby with you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a little
And
different.
then 2 years later, once they turn 2, I promise you will have your old life back.
And you'll
It's
be
really not,
for a
it's
third.
really not that long. It's really,
No.
Yeah.
and it goes by, like, I hate when it goes by so fast. Honestly, they say the same thing about your wedding or the same thing, like, it is so fast that, like, you blink and you're like, oh my God, I have a 2-year-old. Like, how is my youngest 2 years old? I was pregnant yesterday. I don't understand. You'll have time. I went to the gym today. I got a Starbucks. You will get your time back. I promise you that.
That was all super helpful to hear. Just from that, from you will find it again. You're going to get to a new normal, to it's super worth it. Kids are they just make your life better. And I can see that as a doula, for someone who's helped families for over 10 years, I can see that I can see what they do for you. That's why I want to be a mom. But then you're right. It's as the clock is ticking, it's, oh my gosh, but all these things are going to change about the life that I love. And I've worked so hard to get here is another thing, right? I've been in the same relationship for 11 years. We just work. Once you've been doing something for 11 years, you are in a groove. And it's like to think about shifting that definitely brings up some emotions of, oh my God, is this the right thing? Okay, I have one last question, and I asked this because this is all of my questions that I asked my closest friends, and I could never ask clients, and I would never ask someone that I didn't know. So I want to know about sex after baby. What is really the lowdown on reinitiating having sex again or any sort of sexual relationship, I guess, after a baby? And if you both are okay with it, I'd love to know about when it returned for you and what that was like, if there was conversation about it. What do we need to know about that?
We like this topic. We talked about it many times.
I know.
This is Amanda's favorite topic. Amanda always talks about sex. Okay, Jess, you want me to start?
Sure, go.
Okay. We had sex my entire pregnancy. I'm just going to start with that also because a lot of women don't have sex. Obviously, if you're cleared by your doctor, your midwife, your doula, whoever is in charge of you, if you are cleared to have sex, you continue having sex, you feel good. Trust me, it is 10 million times better when you are pregnant because everything is swollen, whatever, like it's a whole other high. Your emotions I think I cried once after and I was like, who am I? Like, what is this? Halfway through sex, like I'm bawling my eyes out, but then like laughing, like it is a completely different experience. If you are able to do it, I 1000% will tell
It's
you
amazing.
I maybe should I be part-time like sex expert too?
Husband might not be so down.
No, he might not be down.
I was down, but my husband was.
And then post, a lot of women are very scared for post, and I completely understand why. I really do. Firstly, when they say 6-week checkup, that's a whole load of BS. Someone can be fine at 4 weeks and someone may not be fine for 3 months. You have no idea what happened down below. If you had stitches, if you had an episiotomy, if you had an infection, the list goes on. There is no standard of 6 weeks. I don't care what anyone tells me, there is no standard. The first time around, I checked myself. We talked about it on the podcast. At 5 weeks, I was like, I'm ready to have sex. And I stuck 2 fingers up my vagina. And I said, if I can do this, I think a penis can go up there. And we had sex and it was totally fine. Women are scared that they won't be wet. I think that's the big thing. Or if they were stitched or all that, get some lube. you're with your partner, you're not having sex with a random person. Talk to your partner about it. If it's painful, use some lube, go slow. If it doesn't work the first time, do it again. And I've asked him a million times, maybe he will never tell me, but I'm like, does it feel the same? It's the same situation down there. And he's telling me everything is the same and all is well. So as long as you feel good and you're ready for it, and there should be no pressure to it. And same thing with while you're pregnant. If you're clear to do it, there should be no reason on why you should not continue having sex.
I agree. I think the pregnancy, I was so much hornier than normal because there's so much blood and whatever. It's just whatever. But my husband was like, I can't, I'm going to hit the baby. I'm like, you're sorry to tell you, your penis is not that big. It's not. You're not going to hit the baby. The anatomy of the body is not that. He didn't get it. Anyway, so by the end, he was like, I can't. It's just too much. But like afterwards, he was like, okay, when are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And I'm like, the first time I was, I think, less ready. The second time I was like, okay, I'm ready. Truthfully, it's that first time it feels weird, not as much because of your vagina, but like your boobs are leaking, your stomach's like all mushy. It's just, you don't feel sexy necessarily. So my recommendation is go out, get drunk, have a date night, take the edge off. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. It doesn't have to be this like crazy thing. And if it happens, and for me, I didn't want to be like this pressure of, hey, this is the first time. I was like, let's just go out and have a fun night out. And then if the night leads that way, then I'll feel it and you just have your night. But it is hard because for me, it's not the vagina. Like the vagina heals, it will get better. You can use lube, whatever. It's like you and your own skin, and it's like a new skin that you're unfamiliar with, and everything feels different and off. And as long as you just accept that this is just a temporary body that you're in, it is what it is.
It reminded yourself that body just did a lot of work, right? Like
exactly.
Your body doesn't look like that because you let yourself go or because you haven't been eating healthy.
It's been busy.
Grew a child and got that child out. Let's not forget that. But I love that you said it's temporary and be communicative with your partner, but things are different nonetheless. One thing I didn't hear either one of you talk about was the fear of the pain. I think a lot of people are scared of the pain. Did it cross either one of your minds? Oh, this is going to hurt?
Yes, but that's where I say if you use lube and you also, and not to promote drinking, but I found like if I had like a drink or two, it took the edge off, you add a little lube, like you just don't have that fear. But some people say it does hurt. So everything's different, right? Like you don't know what it's going to be like. I don't really think they're sewing you up so tight that it's shrinking your hole. I think that's crazy that people have said that. I don't think that's real. I think it's just a matter of, like Amanda said, is your body ready? And I think the earlier you do it, maybe your hormones are not aligned and that's why it hurts because it's just raw.
Your body's not healed yet.
Yeah. The more you wait, the more it's healed, the less raw it will be. And I think that's where the pain fear would come from. I don't remember it hurting.
That's why I said you check yourself. Check yourself. Check yourself. Advocate and check for yourself and you will know. But no, maybe the first time I was like, is this going to be painful? But then I remembered I pushed the 7-pound baby out of there. So I think it can handle anything.
A penis.
I can handle a penis going up there after.
That is not 10 centimeters wide.
But I will say if it hurts, probably it's maybe too soon because
I agree.
And I don't think it should hurt. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. If it hurts, something is probably not super right, which doesn't mean it's not the right time to do it. It just may mean that you need to take it slow, or maybe you do start with fingers instead of a full penis. And you don't just always have to have sex. There's other ways to like have fun with your partner. But there was something that was on my mind that I wanted to mention. We were talking about checking yourself and the wetness, the lubrication. So we know that if you're breastfeeding, the hormones involved in breastfeeding actually can make your vagina a little bit drier. And a lot of people will report that they don't have as much vaginal lubrication when they're breastfeeding. So just know that as well. If your body is still trying to balance your hormones, which takes about 90 days for your body to get used to breastfeeding, you probably might experience a little bit more vaginal dryness, but the lube is the answer.
Your friend. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can never have too much lube. Lube is fun. You guys, this has been so much fun. I've really appreciated it. I've laughed, I cried. I've got some really great advice. Yeah, I really did do it all. And I feel like I asked the questions that I didn't necessarily have anybody else to ask because I don't have an older sister that has had a baby before me. And I would never ask some of these questions to clients because of the relationship that we have. So thank you so much for being here. You guys, where can people find you on social media and where can they find your podcast? And tell us about your podcast. What do you talk about and how often do you drop your episodes?
Our podcast is called Pregnant Bitches. We had that nickname for ourselves actually when we were pregnant together. So that's where it came from. If people were wondering why we have this funny name, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We drop our episodes every week on Thursdays. And we're just like you. We have a very open and honest conversation. We share a lot of the unspoken realities of motherhood. We help first-time moms prepare for motherhood by telling them what to expect. We talk about our experiences. We also talk about our experiences now as moms of toddlers and babies. So we cover the whole gamut of motherhood from pregnancy to postpartum to dealing with babies. And like you said, like not a lot of this stuff is spoken about. So that's why we started this podcast. And you can find us on Instagram, which our handle is Pregnant Bitches with a Z. And we also share some funny reels and stuff that we make us laugh because sometimes motherhood, you need that mom community to lighten up your day or get through the poo stains and the barf explosions and whatever other fun things come your way. So we're here to be your mom community and you should come join us because it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, you guys. Yeah, I can vouch for that. I can vouch that it's a lot of fun over there. All right, you guys, go and follow Jessie and Amanda at Pregnant Bitches on social media. And you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe or at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for an evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly do value this community and I love hanging out with you. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent. It's an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who could use evidence-based information to help them have an informed and confident birth. I'd love to hear what you have to say and read your sweet words. By leaving us a review, you are helping other expectant mamas and their families find the podcast so that we can reduce birth trauma and improve maternity care in the U.S. one birth at a time. If you're interested in joining the Birth Lounge, go to thebirthlounge.com. If you want to connect with me on socials, you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe on all platforms. Until next time, stay educated, stay supported, stay confident. Bye.